I felt there was a huge opportunity as we are bridging into electric long term to use the LiveWire, which is the best product out there, best electric product.
Harley Davidson, the iconic American motorcycle manufacturer synonymous with freedom, rebellion, and the open road, is now grappling with a storm that threatens its legacy. At the helm is CEO Jochen Zeitz, a man brought in to navigate troubled waters, who recently revealed a series of challenges that have put the company in a precarious position. These revelations are not just a commentary on Harley Davidson's internal issues, they are a snapshot of a larger identity crisis and a sign of how turbulent the road ahead might be for one of America's most storied brands. Before we start, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more updates. For decades, Harley Davidson enjoyed a near-mythic status. It wasn't just a motorcycle, it was a lifestyle, a cultural touchstone, and a statement of independence. Yet, in a dramatically shifting economic and cultural landscape, that image is no longer enough to sustain the business. The problems Zeitz has now publicly outlined paint a picture of a company struggling to find its footing in a world that's evolving faster than its strategies. These are not issues that emerged overnight. They are the culmination of years of market changes, strategic missteps, and an inability to resonate with newer generations. One of the primary challenges Harley Davidson faces under Zeitz's leadership is its aging customer base. The core demographic that once made up the majority of Harley's customer pool, older, affluent baby boomers, is shrinking. These loyal customers are aging out of riding altogether, and Harley has not effectively replaced them with younger riders. The motorcycle market itself has shifted, with millennials and Gen Z showing far less interest in the heavyweight cruiser bikes that Harley is known for. Their preferences lean more toward urban mobility solutions, electric alternatives, and lighter, more affordable bikes. Harley's image, built around heavy touring bikes and the leather-clad long-distance biker lifestyle, has struggled to find relevance in this new era. Zeitz has not shied away from acknowledging this problem. He has pointed to a lack of connection with younger consumers and an urgent need for Harley to reimagine its appeal. While there have been attempts to introduce electric models like the LiveWire and to experiment with different styles and price points, these moves have not yet delivered the kind of turnaround the company desperately needs. The LiveWire, for example, while technically impressive and forward-thinking, was introduced at a price point that alienated the very audience it was supposed to attract. Instead of being a gateway into the Harley brand for eco-conscious younger riders, it became a niche product that few could afford or justify. Internally, the company has also been dealing with operational inefficiencies that have hampered growth. Zeitz's restructuring efforts, though aggressive, have revealed just how bloated and outdated many of Harley's processes have become. The company has been burdened by high fixed costs, supply chain disruptions, and manufacturing challenges that continue to weigh heavily on its ability to innovate at the speed necessary for survival. The slow response to changing market dynamics has been compounded by an over-reliance on legacy products, which, while profitable in the past, are now beginning to look like relics of a bygone era. Another major issue stems from Harley's global strategy, or lack thereof. While the brand has made attempts to expand internationally, it has struggled to gain meaningful traction outside North America. Zeitz has admitted that penetrating emerging markets has been more difficult than anticipated. In regions like Asia and Latin America, Harley's premium pricing and heavy bikes often don't align with consumer preferences or economic realities. This has limited growth potential in markets where motorcycle usage is high but brand loyalty is minimal and driven by practicality over lifestyle. The company's dealer network, once one of its greatest strengths, has also become a point of contention. Dealers have found themselves caught in the middle of Harley's strategic overhaul, with some forced to make difficult adjustments to their business models as the company pivots to online sales and direct-to-consumer strategies. While such moves are aimed at modernization, they have created friction between corporate leadership and the franchise network. Dealers, long accustomed to a certain level of autonomy and profitability, are now grappling with changing expectations, shrinking margins, and uncertain futures. Then there is the cultural aspect of Harley Davidson's identity crisis. The brand was built on values that celebrated rebellion, toughness, and American ruggedness. Yet in today's more nuanced and socially conscious consumer environment, that brand persona can come off as outdated or even tone-deaf. Zeitz has spoken about the need for Harley Davidson to evolve its image, but doing so without alienating its existing base is a tightrope act of the highest order. The company must find a way to be inclusive without watering down its identity, a task that few legacy brands have successfully managed. On the financial front, Harley Davidson is facing declining revenues and inconsistent profitability. Sales have trended downward in key markets, and the company's attempts to stabilize have not delivered long-term security. Zeitz has introduced cost-cutting measures and product line consolidations as part of his hardwire strategy, a plan intended to streamline operations and focus on core strengths. But the short-term benefits of these moves are questionable. Cost reduction can provide breathing room, but it is not a substitute for growth. Without clear evidence that these measures are leading to increased demand or a stronger brand position, investors remain skeptical. Moreover, the electric motorcycle segment, touted as a future growth area, remains a battleground of uncertainty. While Zeitz is positioning Harley Davidson to be a player in the electric revolution, the company is up against fierce competition from younger, more agile startups and established automotive giants making similar moves. Unlike traditional motorcycles, electric bikes are judged more on tech capabilities, pricing, and sustainability credentials than on brand legacy or emotional appeal. Harley's heritage may actually be a disadvantage in this context, making it harder to compete with brands unencumbered by decades of tradition. Supply chain issues, a challenge facing many manufacturers in the wake of global disruptions, have further complicated Harley's efforts to stabilize. Delays in production, shortages of key components, and rising raw material costs have all contributed to delivery delays and increased pricing pressures. These logistical challenges have not only hurt customer satisfaction, but also made it harder for Harley to roll out new models or test market innovations with agility. As a result, even when Harley has had promising ideas, execution has lagged. Compounding all of this is a growing sense of disconnection between Harley Davidson and the culture of modern motorcycling. The newer generation of riders are less interested in brand loyalty and more concerned with usability, sustainability, and community. They prioritize motorcycles that integrate technology seamlessly, such as smart displays, app integration, and data-driven diagnostics, features that Harley has been slow to adopt across its main product lines. In contrast, competitors like BMW, Motorrad, Ducati, and even Japanese manufacturers like Yamaha and Honda are moving more swiftly and with more precision to meet these new expectations. The talent crisis within the company is also a noteworthy concern. In an industry that requires constant innovation, Harley Davidson has struggled to attract and retain the kind of young, forward-thinking talent that could breathe new life into the brand. Many engineers, designers, and marketers who are passionate about sustainability and modern design trends may opt to work with newer companies that embody those values more naturally. This leaves Harley not only fighting for market share, but also for the minds and hearts of the very people it needs to reinvent itself. Harley's branding strategy, which once relied heavily on exclusivity and a sense of elite membership, is now coming under scrutiny. As income inequality and generational wealth gaps widen, the idea of aspirational luxury vehicles is becoming less appealing to broad swaths of consumers. There is also the reality that motorcycles, once seen as a more affordable alternative to cars, are increasingly viewed as non-essential lifestyle purchases, especially in urban areas where ride-sharing and public transportation are often more practical and economical. The tension between heritage and innovation has never been more pronounced than it is today. Zeitz's comments reveal a company deeply aware of its vulnerabilities but seemingly unsure of how to move forward without alienating its foundation. This is not merely a business problem, it's an existential dilemma. Harley Davidson is not just competing with other motorcycle brands. It's fighting to stay relevant in a culture that has shifted beneath its wheels. The emotional connection that once defined Harley's appeal is fraying, and the company is being forced to reconsider what it means to be a modern brand with a century-old legacy. Investors are watching closely, and while some remain hopeful that Zeitz's strategic vision will eventually bear fruit, others are growing restless. Market expectations are unforgiving, and without clear signs of a turnaround, Harley Davidson's position could become increasingly vulnerable. The company's stock performance reflects this uncertainty, fluctuating in response to every earnings report and strategic announcement, with analysts struggling to gauge whether the company is in a slow decline or a painful but necessary transformation. Zeitz's willingness to be candid about these problems is, in itself, a reflection of how serious the situation has become. Corporate leaders often shy away from publicly acknowledging systemic weaknesses, but in this case, transparency appears to be part of a broader effort to reset expectations and buy time for a long-term pivot. The gamble is whether time is something Harley Davidson can afford. The challenges are deep-rooted, and solving them will require more than brand repositioning or product refreshes. It will require a wholesale reinvention of how Harley sees itself and how it wants to be seen by the world. The company's future depends on its ability to bridge the gap between legacy and innovation, to create a product line and brand identity that speaks to both the die-hard loyalist and the curious newcomer. This is not easy territory. It involves letting go of sacred cows and embracing a design philosophy, marketing strategy, and operational model that reflect today's values and economic realities. For a company as steeped in tradition as Harley Davidson, this is a monumental challenge. Zeitz's comments also suggest an awareness that Harley may need to shrink before it can grow. That might mean a leaner product line, a tighter focus on profitable markets, and a sharper emphasis on digital transformation. Such moves are likely to be painful, involving layoffs, plant closures, and possibly the abandonment of once cherished goals. But they might also be necessary steps in a survival strategy that prioritizes agility over nostalgia. For Harley Davidson, the road ahead is uncertain and unforgiving. What once seemed like an invincible brand is now confronting the hard truths of modern business. Under Jochen Zeitz's leadership, the company has started to ask the right questions. The challenge now is whether it can deliver the right answers before time runs out. The problems are enormous, but so too is the opportunity. If Harley can rediscover its soul in a form that resonates with a new generation, that may be its only path forward. The pressure mounting on Harley Davidson is not confined to product or market trends alone. It extends deeply into the fabric of how the company operates, thinks, and competes. Jochen Zeitz's revelation wasn't merely a confession of operational turbulence, it was a signal flare from a leadership that sees a company at risk of cultural implosion. The soul of Harley Davidson, forged over a century of rebellious Americana, now risks suffocating under the weight of outdated assumptions, internal fragmentation, and an external world that is reshaping the rules faster than the company can keep pace. One of the more deeply ingrained issues Harley Davidson faces is the tension between its institutional memory and the need for radical reinvention. The brand has long been bound by an internal mythology, an almost sacred narrative of what it means to be a Harley rider. That mythology, while instrumental in building fierce brand loyalty, has also become a shackle. Departments within Harley's organizational structure have historically operated in silos, with engineers, marketers, and executives often pulling in different directions, each trying to protect their corner of a legacy rather than collaborating to build a future. Zeitz's leadership has sought to dismantle this inertia, but years of compartmentalized thinking are not easy to unwind. Another profound issue stems from Harley Davidson's resistance to adopting a fully modern digital strategy. The company has lagged behind in building a strong online ecosystem that would allow it to engage more intimately and consistently with its potential customer base. Unlike newer brands that are born digital and understand the importance of constant engagement, data feedback loops, and algorithm-driven product promotion, Harley has traditionally relied on a more old-school, showroom-centric approach. While some digital initiatives have been launched under Zeitz's tenure, they remain fragmented and insufficient to create the kind of immersive brand experience today's consumers expect. E-commerce, for instance, is still underleveraged. Harley Davidson has not created a compelling digital storefront that mimics the emotional engagement of walking into a dealership and seeing a bike gleaming under showroom lights. The absence of virtual experiences, configurators, and personalized online buying options creates a gap in the customer journey, particularly for younger tech-savvy buyers who make purchasing decisions based on digital experience long before setting foot in a store, if they do at all. Furthermore, Harley's investment in digital community building is underdeveloped. Enthusiast groups and riding communities have historically been a bedrock of brand loyalty, But today's younger riders find community less in physical clubs and more in social media circles, interactive platforms, and collaborative experiences. Zeitz's team has recognized this shift but has yet to effectively translate Harley's unique culture into digital formats that feel authentic and engaging. The company is missing out on the opportunity to reinvent its tribal appeal for a digital generation. Another critical and often underestimated challenge is the growing complexity of regulatory and environmental pressures. Governments across the globe are tightening emission standards, introducing noise pollution regulations, and offering incentives for electric vehicles. Harley Davidson, with its roaring V-twin engines and traditional combustion-first engineering, faces headwinds in markets where environmental sustainability is becoming a legal and moral imperative. Zeitz has acknowledged the gap, and though electric models like the LiveWire represent a step forward, they remain isolated examples rather than signs of a systemic pivot. For Harley to truly align with the future, it needs to embed sustainability not just in product lines but in its entire philosophy, from supply chain choices to manufacturing practices to life cycle responsibility. That segues into another layer of complication: branding inconsistency. With the introduction of electric vehicles under a separate brand, LiveWire, the company has unintentionally created a bifurcation that confuses consumers. While the logic behind separating the legacy Harley brand from the new electric offering is understandable, aiming to protect the heritage identity, it also dilutes the brand's focus. Instead of signaling a confident evolution, it suggests internal uncertainty. This branding dilemma is emblematic of a broader issue. Harley Davidson has not clearly communicated what it wants to be in the next decade. Is it a rugged, gas-powered bastion of tradition, a sleek, tech-forward innovator, or an uneasy combination of both? International market dynamics further compound the difficulty. The American-centric persona that once served as Harley's core appeal has limited resonance abroad. In Europe, motorcycles are frequently viewed as commuter tools rather than lifestyle statements. In Asia, where road infrastructure, economic profiles, and rider preferences vary dramatically, heavy cruisers seem out of place. Efforts to design region-specific models have been slow and, at times, culturally tone-deaf. Zeitz has tried to shift some production overseas and introduce smaller displacement bikes suited to developing markets, but the scale and consistency of these efforts have yet to yield sustainable results. The brand continues to feel foreign in most non-US markets, failing to create the emotional tether that makes it beloved on American roads. The cultural shifts affecting Harley Davidson are also deeply generational. Today's consumers are increasingly focused on values-driven purchasing. They want to support companies that are socially responsible, diverse, and forward-thinking. Harley's image, still heavily weighted toward a hyper-masculine outlaw archetype, can appear out of sync with broader cultural movements that celebrate inclusivity and balance. The visual and narrative language Harley uses in its marketing often feels like a throwback to the 1980s or 1990s, disconnected from the sensibilities of a more diverse, progressive audience. Zeitz has expressed the need for a shift, but implementing this across an entrenched system, with legacy creative teams and loyal customer expectations, is a formidable task. Labor issues have also bubbled to the surface. As Harley Davidson navigates restructuring and modernization, tensions with unions and employees have grown. Zeitz's cost-cutting efforts, including layoffs and plant reassignments, have sparked backlash in several quarters. The workforce, long seen as a proud extension of the Harley brand, now feels uncertain about its future. This internal unrest, while less visible to consumers, affects morale and productivity and erodes the collaborative spirit required to execute major transformation. Even in areas like apparel and merchandising, once a consistent source of brand visibility and supplementary revenue, the company is losing ground. Harley Davidson gear used to be a cultural badge. Even non-riders wore the brand as a statement. Today, that aesthetic feels less compelling, replaced by more contemporary fashion partnerships and athletic urban crossovers. Harley has struggled to evolve its merchandise into something aspirational for younger consumers. While it has experimented with new collections and modern branding, the results have been inconsistent and lacked the kind of cultural buzz that reinvigorates a brand's relevance outside its core product category. The financial ecosystem around Harley Davidson is another layer of fragility. Financing is a key part of motorcycle sales, and Harley's financial services arm has traditionally helped customers afford expensive bikes through payment plans. However, in the current economic climate, With interest rates high and consumer debt rising, this strategy is increasingly fraught. Buyers are more cautious, credit access is tighter, and Harley's high-ticket pricing works against it. The company finds itself in a position where it must either lower prices, thus squeezing margins, or risk pricing out its potential growth market. Neither option is attractive. In parallel, dealership foot traffic has dropped sharply. The COVID-19 pandemic accelerated a trend that was already in motion. Consumers are more comfortable researching and purchasing vehicles online, but Harley's dealerships have not universally adapted. Many still operate under outdated business models, dependent on high-margin service and accessory sales that have become more competitive in a commoditized landscape. While Harley has tried to support its dealers with digital tools, the transition has been sluggish, marked by misalignment and resistance. A less discussed but pivotal challenge is Harley Davidson's innovation pipeline, or lack thereof. True innovation in the motorcycle industry isn't just about engine upgrades or sleeker bodywork, it's about redefining rider experience. Integrated AI riding assistance, modular platform design, augmented reality helmets, and over-the-air updates are becoming standard talking points in the broader mobility space. Harley has not positioned itself convincingly within this futuristic framework. The company risks falling into the same trap that afflicted legacy automakers before their more agile competitors surged ahead, confusing brand prestige with ongoing relevance. Even sponsorship and event strategy, once a dependable arena for customer engagement, have lost impact. The classic Harley rallies and dealership rideouts, while still celebrated by loyalists, do little to attract new blood. There is a noticeable absence of bold experiential campaigns designed for a younger generation that values festival culture, live content, and immersive storytelling. While Harley has the storytelling heritage to captivate audiences, it lacks the platform agility and cultural fluency to turn that heritage into viral moments or scalable content narratives. This absence is glaring in a marketplace where attention is the most valuable currency. There's also a fundamental rethink needed in how Harley views competition. Historically, Harley Davidson saw its main rivals in other cruiser-focused brands like Indian Motorcycle or certain high-end Japanese models. Today, competition comes from a much broader array of mobility choices: electric scooters, subscription-based vehicle models, car sharing, and even e-bikes. The very concept of what defines a ride has shifted. Urban dwellers, for example, are increasingly substituting traditional motorbikes for nimble, app-connected electric scooters or lightweight mopeds that meet their need for speed and convenience without the bulk or bravado. Harley's response to these adjacent threats has been tepid at best. Zeitz, for his part, has tried to take a philosophical approach to leadership, emphasizing long-term value creation over short-term gains. He has spoken about turning Harley Davidson into a more resilient and sustainable company. Yet the actual operational roadmap to achieve that remains hazy. Strategic ambiguity, while at times necessary to navigate fluid market conditions, has created confusion among stakeholders and anxiety among employees. What the company needs now is not more rhetoric, but visible, measurable progress on critical transformation initiatives. Jochen Zeitz's public revelation of the deep challenges facing Harley Davidson is not only an admission of internal and market complications, but also a turning point in the narrative of a brand that has long been perceived as immovable. For a company whose image was built on strength and dominance, revealing vulnerability is a strategic risk, yet it may be the most essential step toward redefinition. One of the lesser discussed yet highly impactful challenges the company faces lies in the psychological and emotional detachment that has grown between the brand and the evolving consumer psyche. Harley Davidson was once the embodiment of the American dream on two wheels, a physical manifestation of escape, individuality, and self-expression. However, the cultural meaning of those concepts has transformed. The idea of freedom for younger generations is no longer tethered to breaking away from social norms with the roar of an engine. It now often aligns with financial independence, environmental consciousness, digital mobility, and flexible living. In this new mental landscape, the classic Harley aesthetic doesn't always translate. Zeitz must contend with the fact that Harley's most powerful intangible asset, its emotional narrative, has drifted away from the priorities of modern life. This change in cultural narrative also intersects with the rise of minimalist and utilitarian values. Younger consumers are not necessarily interested in owning large, elaborate machines with significant maintenance requirements. Many view excess and materialism with suspicion or even disdain. They are less concerned with the legacy of a brand and more attuned to what a product offers in terms of functionality, affordability, and ease of use. Harley Davidson's identity, rooted in maximalism and mechanical grandeur, doesn't easily map onto these sensibilities. The shift in vehicle ownership models adds another layer of complexity. Subscription-based mobility services, peer-to-peer sharing platforms, and short-term rental systems have started to replace traditional ownership, particularly in urban areas. For many younger people, the hassle of owning, insuring, maintaining, and storing a motorcycle doesn't make economic or logistical sense. This isn't just a trend, it represents a deep behavioral shift that challenges Harley Davidson's fundamental sales model. The brand has historically sold not just a vehicle, but a long-term commitment to a lifestyle. In contrast, the current market is veering toward temporary, flexible, and maintenance-free transportation. Beyond consumer behavior, Harley is also confronting escalating competition from outside the motorcycle industry. Tech companies and automotive startups are entering the two-wheeled space, often bringing with them enormous capital, agile innovation processes, and entirely new paradigms of mobility. These competitors are building vehicles with cutting-edge features, fully integrated IoT capabilities, AI-powered ride optimization, advanced safety systems, and intuitive interfaces. Harley Davidson, though engineering capable, is not structured like a tech company. It lacks the R&D velocity, the iterative culture, and the risk tolerance of Silicon Valley disruptors. Without a radical change in its innovation ecosystem, Harley risks falling further behind. The company's physical infrastructure, once a source of pride, is increasingly a liability. Large-scale manufacturing plants, legacy systems, and geographically dispersed supply chains make Harley Davidson less adaptable than newer entrants that operate lean, modular facilities. These modern competitors can switch suppliers, pivot designs, and enter new markets with agility. In contrast, Harley is still tied to fixed cost structures that limit experimentation and responsiveness. This rigidity hampers not only product innovation, but also the ability to trial different market strategies quickly and cost-effectively. Zeitz's attempts to modernize these operational models have encountered resistance, not just externally, but from within the company's culture. Harley Davidson has a deeply embedded institutional identity. Many employees have been with the company for decades, and change is not easily embraced. Transitioning to a digitally focused, flexible manufacturing system or adopting agile development principles isn't simply a technical shift. It requires retraining, cultural overhaul, and often significant internal conflict. Navigating this transformation without fracturing the organization is one of Zeitz's greatest leadership challenges. Another dimension of the company's struggle lies in environmental, social, and governance (ESG) performance. As investors increasingly base decisions on a company's ESG metrics, Harley Davidson's track record and vision in this area remain ambiguous. Electric vehicle initiatives like the LiveWire show a degree of environmental awareness, but the company lacks a comprehensive, transparent strategy to become a sustainable manufacturer in the fullest sense. It has yet to fully address the life cycle impact of its products, renewable energy use in factories, and carbon neutrality goals. Stakeholders, especially institutional investors, are now scrutinizing these details as indicators of long-term viability. There is also the question of leadership succession and long-term governance. Zeitz, while bringing boldness and transparency, is a relatively recent transplant from the world of athletic apparel, having served as CEO of Puma. His understanding of brand revitalization is evident, but motorcycling has unique nuances that require deep industry immersion. A key risk for Harley Davidson is ensuring that the leadership pipeline includes individuals who understand both the traditional essence of the brand and the technological complexities of the future. Without this balanced expertise, the company may vacillate between nostalgia and novelty without finding a cohesive direction. On a strategic level, Harley's partnerships and alliances are also underwhelming. In an age where co-branding, joint ventures, and tech collaborations are accelerating product development and market expansion, Harley has not been aggressive in forming impactful alliances. Whether with battery technology firms, mobility platforms, or urban infrastructure developers, Meaningful collaborations could offer Harley the chance to leapfrog some of its limitations. Yet, its partnership ecosystem remains narrow and conventional. Zeitz has made references to exploring these avenues, but few high-profile partnerships have materialized in a way that clearly signals transformation. If you liked this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on Harley Davidson's problems? What do you expect will happen next? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching and see you next time.